Welcome to All Things Financial with Jack Driscoll. Each week, Jack takes on all things you thought were hard to understand about your finances and makes it fun, easy, but most of all interesting. From insurance to the best way to save your money and squeeze the most out of the dollars you put aside for your rainy day. And now, you have a friend in the money business. Here's your host, Jack Driscoll.
Welcome back again, everyone, to another edition of All Things Financial. This week, I wanted to talk about these cyber risks that we're all hearing about. Yesterday, I saw in a newsletter an article on cyber risks. It was a newsletter from an attorney advising clients about the risks of cyber liability and if anything happens. And then, on the way in the car, I heard about the Capital One breach, which I'll inform everybody about. It appears that, and actually as of about a day or two ago, I heard about the Facebook settlement. So I'll touch on all of these in today's show. But some of you are familiar with the Facebook settlement, the Equifax settlement. You're going to become aware of this, this Capital One that just happened recently. And I just thought I'd bring out on the show, let's talk about this cyber risk. Why should you care? Should you care? How does it affect you? What do you do if it does? And so that's what I wanted to do today. So the first thing I'll touch on is Capital One. That's the latest news as of July 29th and July 30th, 2019. Capital One is the latest victim in a line of many. And Capital One had a data breach. Apparently, a single person, a single woman from Seattle, I think it was an ex-employee from Amazon, is bragging. I don't even think Capital One knew about the breach yet, except for the hacker bragging on purpose, saying, look what I did and look what I can do. So it's a sad world we live in today. And I think some people hearing the blog or I don't know what it was, Facebook, however this hacker was bragging, I think a couple of people contacted Capital One, and that might be how they first even became aware of this overnight. So anyway, it's like it affects over 100 million users, applicants for credit cards, credit card holders, and credit card applicants apparently are going to be hit by this. So we have no idea the consequences of this Capital One breach. But it shows how big this is, and it shows how unaddressed I think this is. What I also see when I get into the office this morning is Capital One shares dive after the data breach, affecting 100 million. And the problem there, I think that was CNBC. Yes, it was. And the problem there is we think as individuals, but a lot of people watching and listening are also business owners, or you work for companies. So think about this. Well, a lot of people work for companies. So take this information to your company, corporate information officer, CIO, and say, hey, if Capital One's shares are going to dive this soon after, could our company handle and absorb a data breach? Not only the breach itself and notifying customers and freezing accounts, but what about damage to our reputation? Will customers leave us? Will customers not come to us for a while? Could it cripple our company? Could it put us out of business? What are the consequences, and have we evaluated as a company our risks if we're one of the victims of a data breach? And the other question is, are we a victim individually or corporately to these other data breaches, the ones in Facebook and the ones in Capital One? Because remember, they got all our information. Which brings me to another answer of a question that I get asked all the time. Clients ask me all the time, how do we protect ourselves, and are we protected if we don't go online? And if we're very careful, we don't open online accounts, et cetera, et cetera. And I've talked with some attorneys about that, and they've said you can help protect yourself. The less information you have out there, obviously, the less potential chance you have of having information compromised. But hey, you have a car loan, you have a mortgage, you do different activities even when you go and buy gas. Maybe you're using a credit card. So although you're not going online, they, meaning the outside world, have all your information already. They have your social security numbers and dates of birth, all those things. So don't think you're totally protected, because you're not. Even Target, remember when that one got hit. So you even go into the store and all the Target customers got hit. And by memory, I'm not sure whether this is right, but I don't even think it was a Target system that got hacked. I thought it was from one of the vendors they were using. I'm thinking one of the contractors they were using got hacked, and it was a backdoor entrance into the Target, and now all the Target customers were hit. So anyway, we have this Capital One issue, which brought it, to the forefront. And then it comes, what do we do? Well, number one, if you have any dealings with Capital One or any credit cards, we have the same advice we had with the Equifax hack, which I'll get into in a minute. Number one, people were freezing their credit cards. Number two, people were freezing their accounts. How do you do that? Well, you contact your credit card companies, and you could put a freeze on your credit card activity. And then what you could do is contact the three main credit agencies. That's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. You can actually contact them and put a filing in to say, I want to freeze any credit inquiries or car loans or anything that's being applied for on my credit cards or my credit accounts. So you can actually freeze the accounts. And then the second thing is you can get free protection from some of those agencies, especially Equifax, since they got compromised, and I'll talk about that in a second. But third, then you subscribe to services as an option to LifeLock and some other services that monitor your credit activities and hopefully help detect and prevent unauthorized access to your credit accounts, including if someone's applying for a car loan or applying for things, and they'll ping your phone or ping your emails or whatever with alerts saying, we just got an inquiry on your account. Are you truly the one applying for this car loan? Did you just apply for credit? They'll also alert you to PNC Bank or someone just did a status report on your account to notify you. So there are some protections available, and what to do with a credit card hack. Now, as far as the Capital One hack, CNN Business came out with a couple things immediate steps on what to do. Don't panic, they say. They say check your accounts now. Get a copy of your credit reports now. See if there are any credit card or banking statement activities that are not yours. It's pretty fast for that to happen. Sometimes hackers wait a year or two, hold the information, and then exploit the information. So it might be 6 months from now or a year from now, you'll start seeing bad accounts opening up that happened from a breach a year ago. And here you're falsely sitting with a sense of security that's a false sense of security that nothing's going on, but they just sat on that information dormant. So here's what you do. You check your checking account statements every month. You make sure you recognize all your transactions. You do balance your checkbooks. Nobody does that anymore, but that's one of the ways you protect. You do look at your credit card statements every month and make sure that your transactions are, you know who they are. You know what they are. You can freeze your credit. You can get online and do a lot of different things, like I said, with Equifax and TransUnion and Experian. And those are the three monitoring agencies. They don't protect you. That's just who all the credit cards and car loans and banks go to do your credit score. And the other thing you're going to want to look at, and those LifeLock accounts and other protection by subscription services offer is if your credit score begins changing, that can be a tip-off that somebody's applied for credit and did not, maybe notify anybody, and you don't know about it, and they're not paying them back. So your credit score is going down and you don't even know it. I have had the first notice being from clients calling me saying, I didn't even know we were hacked until 3 years later when we applied for a car and our credit score was so much lower. So I know I've touched on this on other shows, but I wanted to touch on it again. Now again, recent news, just as of the last couple days, on July 25th, Facebook was in the news that it finally was determined that the FTC announced a $5 billion settlement with Facebook over their privacy breaches. So this is huge business and devastating to not only the customers and all of our information getting compromised, but also to the businesses. Their stocks get hurt, their businesses get hurt. It's a mess for everybody. And remember, a lot of the people compromised are innocent, like us. We're just sitting, driving in the car, and all of a sudden our accounts got hacked, and we could end up having our credit ruined. So a next step is inquire on your homeowner's insurance on cyber liability coverage, and on your business insurance on business cyber liability, and find out what's available. Can you buy insurance that if your accounts are compromised or your credit was hacked, that the insurance company will pay to clean up the mess, that they'll pay to freeze your accounts, that they'll pay the fraudulent charges? Here's the big one. You have identity theft and then you have identity fraud. How about identity fraud where someone took your Social Security number and they're now becoming you? They're creating an identity that they're you. And we've seen cases where they're applying for credit down in Texas or whatever. You don't even know about it. You're not getting any mail. Once you find out about it, you may have to hire attorneys to actually regain your own identity, because this other person has entrenched themselves so much in your Social Security number, they've become a second you. And it takes $30,000 to $50,000 or more of legal fees for you to fight your way through regaining your identity and canceling the old identity. I've had cases where clients say, we've contacted the fraudulent credit card or car, and they won't talk to us because we can't prove we're us, because really the other person has all the identity passwords and security questions and all, and they're the ones that are fraudulent. So you have to hire attorneys to get through all that, and that can be $30,000 to $50,000 or more. Well, it is possible to buy insurance in advance, that if this happens, the insurance policy will pay to hire the attorneys and pay the liabilities to clean up that mess, which could wipe you out. And same for you business owners. So I do want to talk to you about that. Now let's get into the Equifax. It just became news over the last couple of days also that Equifax will now pay up to $700 million over its data breach. And we have an article on here's how to claim your money. This is also CNN Business, but you need to know how to claim your money. So what is that money? Well, if you're among the 147 million people affected, and obviously pretty much all of us are, then you may be eligible for compensation. And the compensation, there's an online claims process. And what you do is you go on there. If you already have credit monitoring, like you've already subscribed to LifeLock, and or Equifax gave free credit monitoring for at least a year, if I recall. If you already have credit monitoring, you could choose to receive $125. If you had to spend time and money as a result of that breach, Equifax can provide larger sums up to as much as $20,000. So what you'd have to do is file a claim for that, document your expenses, justify all your fees and all, whether you had to freeze the accounts, unfreeze the accounts. You can get paid up to $25 an hour for up to 20 hours of personal time spent. I mean, there's a lot of protection on this, and there's a lot of damage. So Equifax has a data breach settlement page. You can Google that, look them up, get online, but you can choose in or opt out if you wanted to make your own lawsuit. But the settlement process is November 19th. That's the deadline, November 19th, 2019. And all claims have to be filed by January 22nd, 2020. It was the largest breach in history. So yeah, most of us are going to be compromised by that for sure. And you want to claim everything you're entitled to. But again, don't lose sight of probably buying the insurance is the least expensive and largest benefit you can get. What you might also want to do is shop the homeowners insurance companies, shopping around not only for your premiums. You know, most people make the biggest mistake I know of when they're shopping insurance. When they shop for insurance, they're saying, I want to know how much you would charge me for exactly the same coverage I have now. That is totally the wrong question. The question should be, when you're shopping for any insurance, should be, I want you to look over my insurance and tell me all the things I'm not covered for that I should be. And then once you have that analysis finished, which is really the most important thing you're buying insurance for, fill the gaps on where I'm exposed. Then quote me the price on how much it is to cover those gaps. But most people are making the horrendous mistake of, here's my insurance policy, I want everything covered exactly as I have now, and I know your concern and your fear. I don't want you to leave anything off and be cheaper than what I'm paying now, but you're missing that so much changes over the years, and the risks have expanded so much over the years that you need way more coverage than you have right now and don't even know it. Let the professional agent examine the insurance that you need, totally disregarding the insurance you currently have. Then once that analysis is done and they have the whole package, proposed package prepared on truly what you need, then and only then go to the coverage you have and say, okay, now let's look and see what you have and see if that's what you need. And you'll see so many things missing and you'll be in a much better position. But you also, when you're shopping these insurances, want to say, how much cyber liability do you offer? Because some companies only offer up to $25,000 and it's only for the data breach. Others offer $25,000 or $50,000 or $75,000 and it's for replacement of your identity, recreation of your identity that was fraudulently used. So you have to study through and shop, hey, if this data breach happens, I don't want to be wiped out. And you business owners, the same thing. So there are a lot of threats and consequences for all of this. Now, I wanted to touch on some other topics that I come across routinely, and I'll do some shows in depth on some of these issues in future dates. But I wanted to touch on some of these things. Why should we care? Because it could wipe us out, and I think I've illustrated that. How do we protect ourselves? Yeah, we freeze our accounts, and I've touched on some of that. The businesses, here's what I want to communicate to the businesses, whether you work for a company or you're a business owner. Number one, if there's a data breach like Capital One, employees' data are hugely at risk. Now, here's another problem. Employees, I want you to listen. I just saw last week an article on employers are now able to monitor employees' activities all day long through work and not inform the employees as to what extent they're monitoring. It's not just emails. They're monitoring when you go to the bathroom, who's most productive. Google it. You'll see what I'm talking about. The article was just out this week. I didn't pull it for the show. I just remember reading the article. Part of my benefit to you is I read all the time and then try to share what I'm reading to help you be illuminated on a lot of these issues. But that's one of them that I had just seen. Well, now there's Capital One and Equifax and Facebook brings it to light, because in my research on looking into those, I saw loads and loads of employee lawsuits against their employers for identity breaches or data theft. They're suing employers for not protecting privacy. So one of the biggest risks to you business owners and all of you who work for businesses are twofold. Number one, you as an employee, are your rights protected, and is your data and information protected, or is it compromised due to a breach? And a lot of those lawsuits seem to stem from employees saying the employer was negligent in protecting your information. And number two, are you employees protected by, if there's a data breach, are you subjecting the employer to risk by not doing your own job in protecting clients' information? So it's widespread. And then to the business owners and corporate officers, are you at risk to lawsuits from the employees and lawsuits from the clients that could actually wipe your business out? So that's number one, why should we care? Customers, data, what happens if your company is breached? If you work for a corporation, your wheels come to a halt. They come to a screeching halt. You now have fiduciary liability. You have to notify all your customers. You have to shore up the data breach. You have to contact your attorneys and make sure you're following federal regulations and guidelines on post-breach regulations on what you have to follow. And then work through all the nightmare of that your stock is plummeting and customers are calling and taking their accounts and everything else. So again, I implore all of you before this happens, although it already has, if it's happened to Equifax, Capital One, Facebook, it's already happened to your business and you don't know it. So get this insurance in place, the maximum that you can get, so that your business doesn't end up closed someday. I did not do research today for today's show on how many businesses close after a data breach, but I have done that research in the past, and it's a lot. That upon a data breach, some businesses, once they get it all resolved, never are able to reopen. You can Google that, but I'll try to research that for another show. So, check your email accounts. Are they encrypted? Do you have enough encrypted protection? I read a lot of articles that are way over my head on dual encryption, and there's so many protections on online accounts and emails and all the data that you collect from clients, but get on that. But here's another one. I want to get into scams. You know, hacking's one thing, but then we have personal scams. I've become aware, and I talked about this within the last year, even with LifeLock, who monitors a lot of things, including access to your Social Security numbers. How about this one? Some of you may remember I brought this up before. A scammer applying for your Social Security benefits when you turn age 62 without your knowledge. Your Social Security benefits may be being applied for, and you won't even know about it, and the checks will start going out. That has happened. How about IRS scams? The IRS is now saying file early. Why? Because they can't stop the scammers from filing a return on your behalf, applying for a federal refund, and the IRS accepting it and complying with that and sending out the refund. So guess what the IRS's solution to that is? Well, you file first. This is weak. This is very weak protection that these large international companies have and our large government agencies have. If they're getting hacked, the polls when we go to vote, the government during the elections, the IRS when we file our taxes, the Facebook and the Capital One and the banks and Target and Equifax, you think you're protected? So let's get on this. Let's shore up ourselves. Let's become aware. Let's not hide our heads and try to protect ourselves the best way we can, and then insure ourselves the best way we can. Another area, which was really what brought this to my attention on why to do the show this week at all, was the newsletter that I got. And a customer shared it with me, actually, from a law firm. And basically all it was saying was digital assets. And the article was by Tim Grant in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. But here's what it said. Most people keep important data online. We keep our passwords, we keep our usernames, we keep our family photos, all these things, right? And loads of documents with the cloud, we're trusting the cloud and everything else. And so it says, Pennsylvania, this one particular article said, Pennsylvania does not have a law yet on how to handle those accounts when someone dies. So we don't think about that, but it goes on to say in the article, when a client died 10 years ago without sharing his password to an online investment account, Pittsburgh lawyer Doug DiNardo realized digital assets would be a game changer for estate planners. And this was in the Rothman Gordon newsletter that came out to one of my clients they shared with me, which is a law firm in Pittsburgh. And it said, we didn't even have the internet when I started practicing law, he said, which prior to the 90s, we really didn't. And family members, here's what happened. Family members eventually were able to liquidate the account after jumping through hoops and hurdles with the investment firm, because for most people, some of their most treasured possessions, photos, documents, music, videos, are stored on a computer server or accessed online, right? Yes. And it said that is why so many states have given laws giving executors of estates authority to handle decedents' digital assets, including social media accounts and emails. But guess what? Pennsylvania is not currently one of them. They've not passed laws giving families or executors the right to access and manage their digital assets when they die. You know what that means? Those accounts may be frozen when the owner dies and nobody gets access to the accounts, which means all that information might get lost. So we think you can inherit your furniture, your house, your investment accounts, but we forget about digital assets now, and they might get frozen. Nobody can inherit them, and nobody has rights to get access to the information. So all that information stored up there may die when the owner dies because no one else can get access to the information. Check with your attorneys, go through all your accounts, update your wills and your powers of attorney, and address this issue with your attorneys, and they'll help you fix it. All right, everyone, that's another edition of All Things Financial. I appreciate your tuning in and viewing. I'll be back again next week.